Hey, it's Mike with AutoAnything.com. Today I'm going to show you how to swap from stock wheels and tires to aftermarket wheels and tires. So I went with these aftermarket tires because they have a much larger, luggier tread design that's really going to help off-road getting through the dirt and the rocks, versus the stock tires, which you'll notice it's a much lower profile and closer together design, really made for highway comfort and fuel economy, whereas this is made for strength and giving you traction off-road where it's needed. So before you get started, it's always nice to have your tools laid out in front of you to make sure that you have everything that you're going to need. One obvious one is of course going to be the floor jack. You have to make sure that you can get the truck up off of the ground to begin with. But from there, what I used was a 1/2-inch drive breaker bar with an extension, a torque wrench at the very end to finish everything up, and then a few different sockets. Needed a 21mm socket for my factory lug nuts, and then a 19mm socket to hold the splined lug nut key. Now the first thing that I'm going to be doing is breaking the lug nuts loose while the truck's on the ground. Once you get it lifted up onto the floor jack and then try to break the lug nuts loose, the tire's just going to spin because there's nothing holding it in place. I'm going to break these free before I lift it up onto the floor jack. Now with those free, we can go ahead and lift it up and we'll take this wheel right off. Now before you start jacking the truck up, it's good practice to always use the jacking point that's built in onto the vehicle. Now if you don't know where that is, it is something that's mentioned in the owner's manual, so I do recommend checking that ahead of time. I know where mine is, so I'm going to go ahead and get this truck lifted up off the ground. So a little trick that I like to do when taking the lug nuts all the way off is keep the extension and the socket attached. Gives it just something easier to hold on to while you're removing them. So I'm going to go ahead and take the rest of the lug nuts off here first. Then I can pull the wheel off and set it aside. All right, with all the lug nuts off, we can just lift this right off the truck now. So a small trick that I like to do myself is make sure that my studs are lined up properly. Now what that means, because these aftermarket wheels and tires are really heavy, this setup here is almost 100 pounds. So lifting that up can be a little bit challenging. So what I'll do is I'll take this stud and put it right up at the top, so I have a nice reference point when I go to lift this on. It makes it easier to keep everything lined up properly. I'm going to use my legs and my arms to lift this because you don't want to injure your back lifting these heavy wheels and tires. So get this into position and simply lift it right up. So one very important detail with aftermarket wheels specifically is they do require special lug nuts. Now, primarily what you're going to come across is lug nuts with a cone seat, which has this 60-degree tapered shape to it. This extra part at the top is something that's kind of specific to this wheel. It's called an extended thread lug nut. So don't be alarmed if you get a set without this straight part to it. What's really important is this 60-degree tapered cone side. But from here, we can go ahead and install the lug nuts. That way we can get everything nice and tightened down before we take it off of the floor jack. So now that we've got the lug nuts just firmly on enough, more or less hand tight, it's able to lower the truck off the floor jack so it's got the pressure on the wheel. So now I can actually get in here to tighten up the lug nuts and then use the torque wrench to really make sure that they're on there properly. I'm going to start by just tightening them up here. And one important thing to do while you're tightening your lugs is to go in a star-like pattern. So you want to crisscross or jump from one side to the other as you're tightening these on. That way it's also helping to properly center the wheel in place because you don't want it to be off-centered. That could create a vibration while you're driving. With these just tight enough, we can go ahead and switch over to the torque wrench, make sure that these are properly secured to the truck. And with that finished, with these torqued into place, the wheel is now fully secured onto the truck and ready to go drive. I hope that was helpful for you all. We're always available to give you help if you need it. If you have any other questions, concerns, or need to talk about wheels, please do give us a call or chat with us online at AutoAnything.com.